Hello and good day, and welcome to Let's Talk. I'm Jade Harrell. I'm joined by Amber Clear, Amy Rivera, and Tina Love. And each week we come together to share our perspective on the issues in our world. We always like to start with what we're loving. So I'm going to start with you, Tina. What are you loving this week?
I am loving truth. And what I mean by that is, when somebody tries to deceive or to um, hide something, and finally it comes out, and people learn things that they didn't know. That is what I am loving today is that, whatever is in the dark will eventually come out in the light. And so
Ain't
that is what I am loving.
I'm loving that with you, honestly. Amber, how about you?
I am loving my garden. It makes me feel so empowered and responsible to bring from the seed to the feed. I jokingly call it, literally from my backyard to the table, because I probably picked the last of my ripe tomatoes, but I still have bell peppers coming in, radish, beets.
Yeah, it's hard.
Carrots, potatoes. So yeah, I am loving the fact that I can provide for myself.
I love that too. And you can provide for me too. What time is
Oh,
dinner?
for sure. Come on over. I have a large garden and lots of fresh eggs.
It sounds like a glorious time. Amy, what are you loving right now?
You know, what I'm loving is actually seeing women come out and talk about being themselves lately, talking about not using filters, talking about how beautiful their bodies are. So I am really loving the empowerment I'm seeing from women right now.
I am loving what I'm seeing from you right now. I saw how you're working on some new areas of therapy and reduction, and you're doing just great. And you look beautiful, and you're helping encourage and inspire me too.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So I am loving that we even have this opportunity to talk. I am loving that I have completed and voted and am really looking forward to what's next, hopefully more positive than what we've been seeing. Well,
Mhm.
ladies, let's get right into our first topic. For thousands of years, women have been shamed for being sexual, yet we are admired for our sexuality. It's an interesting topic that was raised in this documentary, The Dilemma of Desire, which also looks at the lack of research on female sex organs. Here's a short clip. Take a look.
All of this started maybe about 2 summers ago. I taught a class called Biology of Womanhood. One of the chapters in the book that I was using as a text was entitled The Clitoris. And it hit me. I don't even know what this looks like. I just got really upset. As a woman biologist, how is it possible that I do not know what my own biology looks like? That's insulting, right? Okay, so you're mad. What are you gonna do about it? I decided that I wanted to use this to fuel my life's work.
We are honored to be joined today by the director, Maria Finizzo, a Peabody Award-winning documentarian who focuses on social issues. Maria, welcome to Let's Talk.
Thank you very much for having me.
What a powerful piece of work. You have totally shifted my paradigm, and I feel even more empowered in having seen the film. Why did you make this film?
So that women would feel like you are feeling right now. A lot of my career as a documentary filmmaker has been telling stories about girls and women at various stages of their lives. And so about 6 years ago, when I was looking for another subject, it just seemed like the right time to make a film about this. I had a daughter who was maybe by then in college. And what struck me was how much more dangerous the landscape was that she lived in terms of in her desire to be a sexual being than when I had grown up. And I wondered why we had lost so much ground from the women's movement in the 60s and the sexual revolution, right, which is when I grew up. And so I wanted to find out what was going on and what were the forces that were sort of taking us backwards in time and not allowing our daughters to enjoy the freedoms which we all fought for.
The timing of the filming looks like it started after the 2016 election. Did the protests and the current women's movement help spark the idea?
It certainly helped focus the idea. I actually started filming in August of 2016 in the run up to the election. And then, of course, in November, everything changed, and it did help focus the filming and what we were going to start doing. And it also, for me, gave the film a real urgency. It brought it in focus. This is not just something that's in my head as an important idea, but rather it's a very important idea whose time has come.
What was the most eye-opening moment that you encountered while making this film?
Well, I think one of the early moments when I was doing research and I went to New York to meet the artist Sophia Wallace, and this was in 2012. And I wanted to meet her because I wanted her to be in the film. And she was telling me about her work, Cliteracy to 100 Natural Laws. And then she showed me an image of the clitoris, including the internal portion of the organ. And that was quite eye-opening for me because I was, I don't know, 56 years old at that point, thought I was a pretty with it woman, and was a little bit appalled to know that I didn't know what my own anatomy looked like.
I was struck the same way, feeling enlightened and my eyes were open, but also appalled. And how could this be? You know, half a century old and not a clue. And then when I saw it, it was such an aha, like eureka. That makes perfect sense. And why and how would these things differ for women as they would for men? So much incredible insight in this film and the care you took. I so certainly appreciate it personally. And I know the ladies were moved too. We've been really thinking about it a lot ever since we saw it. Tina, I got to start with you. You have conversations on a regular basis on your podcast about love and sex and relationships. I'm sure you have some thoughts here.
Oh my gosh, so many thoughts. How much time do we have? It was very eye-opening, and this is exactly why I do the show, The Lover's Lounge, is because there's so much angst around the discussion around sexuality, sex education, of course, here in America is very minimal. You know, parents and educators are of the thought that if they educate young people about sex, then they'll go out and do it, and so, or they'll have a lot of teenage pregnancies. And so that's something that often comes up in my show. But the other thing that comes up a lot is the fact that we as women really don't know our bodies. So, you know, I had a guest on recently who was a professor, Dr. Lene St. John, out of California. She had a human sexuality course, and one of the things that she had her students do throughout her course was to look at their own body and examine their own body. And she said there were many students that oftentimes cringed because they were going to have to do that. And one lady, 55 years old, admitted that she had never really looked at herself in the mirror and didn't really know what was down there, you know. And so it was very eye-opening. And so I do thank you so much for this documentary, lots of different things, but I'll give other people a chance to say what they learned and what they thought about.
Let me ask a quick question, Maria. The disconnect between an awareness of our body and as the voice that goes with it. This occurred to me as way more than biology. And once there was an association made, it informed a lot more decisions outside of just the physiology. Can you talk about that connection and how you were able to bring that forward in this film? The significance of it anyway?
So that was really what was most interesting to me, which was to explore what happens to girls and women when they begin their lives with a lie, the lie of omission, right? The word, nobody tells a girl she has a clitoris on her body. Nobody tells her what it's for. And yet if there's if she's got a brother, he's known he's had a penis since the age of 2 and what it was for and what it did and how it felt like when he touched it. I mean, that's just a given. And so, one of the subjects in the film, Sunny, the Asian woman says, you're not taught about this part on your body because your voice isn't heard in so many other ways. And so if you believe, and I do, what Audre Lorde says, which is that women have within them this capacity, the power of the erotic, which is not sexual, right? It's a life force. And then if you are disconnected from that power and disconnected from the knowledge of it, then you can't even imagine the possibilities of your life, right? You can't even, you won't understand what you could in fact do. And so when you don't know about your body, and then you come together maybe for the first time in a sexual encounter, you have no idea how to speak up or what to ask for or what to expect. And so right away, there's a loss of entitlement. And that loss of entitlement ripples out into every aspect of our lives, not just the bedroom, the boardroom, politics, the church, our social interactions, everything. And so for me, this has always been a film about how a campaign to disconnect, cisgendered women, well, all people actually who are not cisgendered men, from their source of power, both personally and politically. And the first way you do it is by starting with a lie.
Amber, you talk about power a lot. This was kind of where we really rallied around that part of it, taking away that voice, taking away that power. Come on and bring the power.
So I actually watched this with my partner, and his reaction to it was interesting. And we also had a couple discussions about some of our friends, and he doesn't know about their sex lives, but he knows about how powerful they are as women. And to me, there is a direct correlation to women that feel empowered in the bedroom, meaning that they then feel empowered in the boardroom. So it's not, this conversation turned to, it's not just about sex. It's about when you suffocate our sexuality, you're suffocating everything else about us, because realistically, confidence brings orgasms and orgasms bring confidence. And if you're taught to have a voice in one room, then you can have a voice in the other. So we talked a lot about who was doing well in life, who had a voice in the boardroom. And then, of course, I know their sexual lives. And so we had a kind of like guess who's doing well. And that's all it was, is just, hey, who's empowered in the bedroom. And he was spot on because of how empowered they were in other aspects of their life. So it's absolutely a situation where if women knew our true voice, we could have so much more power. And now I will differ a little bit and say that I watched the film and I think that we place a lot of blame on men. And I think a lot of it is also coming from other women, because we stifle other women, we claw at each other. Only one of us can succeed. And if we would work as a team and build each other up and find the powerful women that are giving voices to other females, then we could be a lot further ahead.
I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm in such agreement. There's one more room that I'd like us to acknowledge, including bedroom, boardroom, which relates to the room in our heads and the story that we're telling ourselves. Again, it's not just being physically provocative or the prowess in a bedroom. Again, when you said life force, Maria, literally, literally, life force emerges as a area of thought and focus. And I take that to the idea that there's so much more behind the little button. The button is like an entryway or a signal to, hey, there's way more to explore. And if humans and moons and oceans are moved by our essence, we have to imagine that there's some gateway there to life and life force that must be respected and acknowledged.
The author, Audre Lorde, in her incredible essay, Uses of the Erotic, she finishes the essay by saying, essentially, a culturally cliterate world is not just a world about pleasure. It's an anti-misogynistic world. It's an anti-racist world. And it's the way that we will all come together as people to all make sure that we're all equal and that our voices are all heard. And so I think for me, that's always been the most important part of this film, is that, yes, it's about the clitoris. Yes, it's about women's right to sexual pleasure, but that's as you were saying, is an entryway into our understanding our place in the world and the power that we would have to make things better, right?
It's not about taking away from the men or not about taking away from anybody. It's about making more room at the table. The better understanding I have of my body, the more pleasure that the other person can have. So and that's in life. That's just in life, not just sexually. But I think that we can all be happier if we can all work together.
Well, literally again.
Literally.
Amy, you understand well about speaking up and stepping out and making yourself heard and seen. There was a part in here that talked about the the shame and how that makes us shrink behind ourselves. I'm sure that touched a spot for you. Pardon the pun.
So when I was watching the
Am I in the
documentary,
right place? Oh,
right. When I was watching it, all I could think about was my daughter, actually. I have a 20-year-old daughter, and I grew up in a very sexually charged environment, which led me down to a negative path. And when I started to,
Wait, is it negative by your standards or negative by society standards? Because a negative path doesn't always resonate with what we grow up to be, if that makes sense. Like,
it was a negative path for me personally. It was something that I wouldn't want my daughter to go down that path. If it's her choice, it's her choice. Mine was not. So with that being said, I wanted to teach my daughter everything that I learned the difficult way, and I also wanted to teach her her voice. So when I was watching this documentary, I was like, yes, I did it right. I have these open conversations with my daughter, and we've been talking since she was 15 years old about her body. And I got whiplash by parents and mothers and family members. But let me tell you, she is 20 and she still doesn't have any children. She's with one person and she knows what she wants and she does not take anything from anybody. So I saw that empowering conversation that we kept having grow in her. And the thing I wanted her to know is don't be shameful of what your desires and needs are, and there's a way of going about it and whatnot. So yeah, shame really did get to me because I had a shameful past in my eyes. And when I watched this, I felt a release, and I felt like I was like, yay, I successfully taught my daughter something, and so I love the documentary, and I'm really happy that I have that open dialogue with my daughter.
a lot for the daughters of this world. I certainly want to see a better place for my 17-year-old daughter about to be in the world on her own as a young woman. Maria, again, you touched a very important place for us as a community as a body of women, but definitely personally. Do you have a personal message since you dissected the dilemma of desire? What do you want for us to go and be from here? What's your message?
This is a vital part of our humanity. The choices we make sexually are the most intimate choices we make as human beings. And those choices shouldn't be criticized, controlled, or criminalized. They belong to us. And you can't make those choices in a way that is best for you if you don't have the knowledge of your own body, right? If you don't feel safe in your body, if you don't own that knowledge, then how are you able to make informed choices? And what I would love everybody who watches this film to do is to tell a young woman that they know, maybe younger, but certainly when she's on her way into high school, the truth. I even call it hashtag tell her the truth. Show her what her body looks like. Tell her where her pleasure comes from. Empower her with knowledge so that when she chooses to be sexual in whatever way she chooses, she's making an informed decision. And that, I think, will change everything.
It will change everything for generations to come. I hope we can share this with every single person that we meet. I think it will make a difference and is a vital part of our humanity. Ah, I honor you and thank you again, Maria Finizzo, the acclaimed director of The Dilemma of Desire, now showing at the St. Louis International Film Festival, running from now through November 22nd. It is virtual this year. Get your tickets and other information at cinemastlouis.org. Again, Maria, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure.
So much of who we are is based on how we were raised. It's not until we reach adulthood that we realize that we may not be in sync with our own personal beliefs. When we come back, let's talk about unlearning behaviors. Stick around.
Queen is just my everything.
His smile did it. His smile, his eyes, his knowledge. My landlord, he decided that he wanted me to move based on the fact that I was transgender. Let's just respect people in everyday life for just being human.
Welcome back to Let's Talk. I'm Jade Harrell with Amber Clear, Amy Rivera, and Tina Love, ladies. The documentary, The Dilemma of Desire, was largely about using our voices and harnessing our power as women, but that's not always easy. We're taught to look and behave a certain way, which sometimes doesn't align with who we are. Let's talk about identifying and expressing our individuality. Let's start with you. Or were there any aha moments where you realized your reality was different from what you were taught? I kick it back to you, Amy.
Oh, yes. A lot of things were different from what I was taught. And it's funny that we're talking about this because I'm actually seeing a therapist over this right now, given my family environment and my past history. And I was taught to use my body for what God gave it for. And that is what my mother had taught me, something I wouldn't want to teach my children. And the one thing that I've learned this week is when you hear the word should, you automatically feel shame because someone's telling you what you should be doing, how you should be feeling, how you should be dressing. So now I remove the word should out of my vocabulary. And if someone says should to me, I say, oh, I don't do shoulds because I don't do shame anymore. Because what I was taught is not how I learn and walk today. And so shoulds are gone. And so is shame.
And we are not going to be shoulding all over the place, shoulding ourselves.
That's right. No more shoulds.
Get that should out of here. Okay.
Right.
Get that should out of here. The fears and struggles you used to have in using your voice or expressing your dynamic individuality.
I grew up in a very Catholic household with my grandparents, and two quotes that really resonated with me about this film was a woman's pleasure is not a novelty, because growing up, I was taught that if I had sex, then I was a slut. So it's something that I will not be ashamed of if I have sex or if I have sexual desires. And that's something that I had to unlearn. And then talking about this with my partner, we talked about if you take away something that brings someone happiness, you are taking control of that person. So when we take away a woman's sexual pleasure or access to her sexuality, we as a society are trying to control her. And my biggest unlearning in life was having confidence in myself. It was unlearning that letting someone else control my confidence, unlearning letting someone else control my sexual experience. Because if I don't have a voice, then I don't have any power. And power is important. So I'm going to take that power. Now, I probably flipped too hard to the other side because I was very late in the game having sex, but then I went full on, I'm going to have all the power, and was a dominatrix for a while. So now I've got a happy medium. And I'm not saying I wasn't happy as a dominatrix. I was very happy, but I think I went from one extreme to the other, and now I'm in this happy middle for me. So
that's the whole point of it all, actually, is finding your way to your best place, your best experience. Your
Right.
best.
So that's why,
Can I-
Amy, I kind of interrupted you earlier. I was like, don't you slut shame yourself, Amy.
No,
Don't
no,
you do it.
I want to make this very, when you were speaking, I come from one end of the spectrum and you came from another, and we both suffered from one thing, self-confidence.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we both have to unlearn what we learned in order to have a healthy sexual relationship with whoever and whomever. But we came from both ends of the spectrum.
And
So,
the fact that we're even invoking the word slut still brings forward, it was created in order to be a word of shame. And I believe that one of the things that came forward that's significant, and that'll basically bring us home with Tina, is the idea of being able to also voice that to your partner. Even the first speaker, biology doctor, women's biology doctor, said that it was awkward or challenging to tell somebody, well, maybe a few centimeters to the left could do us some service, or that she wasn't aware. There's so many parts of that, being able to actually engage. So how is it that we can engage physically in sex, but we can't mentally or verbally communicate with those same partners? And that's something that I'm learning late in life, and even in marriage. Tina, the conversations, how do the conversations need to happen, and how have you been able to facilitate those in your show?
Well, once again, this is really why I'm doing this show, The Lover's Lounge, is because I want to take away the shame of talking about sex, first of all. And, when I tell people that I do a show on love, relationships, and sex, oftentimes I get the deer in the headlights look from people. It's like, they just can't believe that I'm talking about sex. Some people can't even say the word sex. They can't even say the word clitoris or vulva or whatever. And so what I'm trying to unlearn is, and help other people to unlearn, is that it is okay to say sex. It is okay to say penis and clitoris. It's something that we have on our bodies. And I'm trying to help normalize the conversation around sex and what it is. And I'm also trying to make sure that parents start talking, like Amber did very early on, with their children about their body and about, their sexuality, that it shouldn't be something that they are embarrassed of, but that they embrace. God gave it to us. So why should we be embarrassed about our bodies? That's just what, girl, I could go on.
Absolutely. So your work, along with this documentary, and it seems to be that there's a wave of conversation that's beginning to flow in about this conversation. There's songs about it, a woman can want it too. And
look at the blowback from that song. Like, all of a sudden,
gonna go with it. And in order for us to help further the conversation, is by one, speaking up in honesty and truth and authenticity. And I believe that's what we've done here today, ladies. I so appreciate you all. I need this. Look forward to it every week. I hope you do too. So thank you so much for watching Let's Talk. And you can catch new episodes every single Tuesday. Comment and let us know what you're talking about, and so you can get in on the conversation. Make sure you follow STLTV on social media, and we'll be looking for you. So let's talk.
You were talking to me? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Oh, I was talking to Amy.
Oh,
Oh,
what,
okay.
what did
Okay,
you?
Amber. My bad.
Oh,
Amber.
I didn't know whose
You know
name
when
you
your mama
said.
started calling names, you know
probably
who
what?
I'm talking to. You know who I'm talking to.
Watching this film, I resonated the
Booyah! 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 Booyah!
Nice job, ladies.
Did that thing on election day. Put a clitoris ballad on the.
I don't think any of us said it.
I said clitoris. I just did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Clitoris, vulva, vagina. We should not be afraid to say those words. There's something that's
Stick
on
with
our body.
pocketbook for a little while, but eventually I'll get there to VJJ.